Welcome back to Mr. John Stories, where life's most powerful lessons come wrapped in unforgettable tales. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining the family. Please hit the subscribe button so we can keep sharing inspiring stories like this with you on YouTube. The cold air in Juneau brushed across Eva's cheeks as she stepped onto Marcus and Nova's porch. She pulled her coat closer, feeling a familiar warmth in her chest, the kind that always filled her on weekends with Brooklyn. These moments were supposed to be simple, comforting, predictable, but today the world greeted her differently. When the door opened, Brooklyn appeared first, but not the Brooklyn she knew. No joyful footsteps, no running hug, no mom, bursting from her little chest. Instead, her daughter shifted backward, barely a step, but enough for a mother to feel it like a blade sliding between ribs. "Hi, baby," Eva whispered, lowering herself to seem less distant. Brooklyn didn't move. Her small fingers curled into her sleeve. Her eyes flickered toward Nova, who stood behind her, calm, still, observing the moment with a quiet neutrality that somehow made everything feel heavier. Eva opened her arms the way she always did. "Come here, sweetheart." But Brooklyn's hand slid toward Nova instead, seeking comfort in a place Eva didn't recognize. The motion wasn't dramatic. It wasn't rebellious. It was gentle and devastating. "I don't want to go today," Brooklyn whispered. Eva blinked slowly. "Why not, baby?" "I feel better here. Not tired. Not busy. Not maybe later. Better." That single word sliced deeper than any argument Eva had ever had in her life. Nova remained silent, neither encouraging the child to stay nor sending her forward. Her quiet presence felt like a wall built without malice, but still a wall. Eva forced a soft smile, one that trembled at the corners. "If you need today, it's okay. This wasn't a tantrum. This wasn't conflict. This was comfort being chosen somewhere else." And that truth lodged itself in Eva's chest like ice. Eva realized love can drift quietly. So quietly you don't notice until your child is standing inches away, but emotionally miles apart. Have you ever loved someone so deeply that even the smallest distance feels like losing a part of yourself? That was Eva's heart collapsing in real time. This wasn't a custody issue. This wasn't a schedule problem. This wasn't about weekends. It was about connection, and Eva felt hers slipping through her fingers like mist. But what if the real reason for Brooklyn's distance had nothing to do with choosing another home? What if she was carrying a truth too heavy for an 8-year-old to speak? A truth that would change everything. Darling, before the story goes deeper, please like this video and comment your thoughts. Your engagement helps this story reach more hearts. Eva walked back to her car slowly, each step heavier than the last. By the time she closed the driver's door, her breath trembled. She replayed Brooklyn's whisper in her mind. "I feel better here. Not safer. Not happier. Just better." The kind of better children say when they're trying to protect their own hearts. As she drove, Eva asked herself the question no parent wants to face. When did I stop being enough? Back at her apartment, Eva placed her keys in the bowl by the door. The silence wrapped around her. Not peaceful silence, but hollow silence. It transported her back to the early days after the divorce. Nights when she sat on the edge of her bed staring at unopened boxes because unpacking meant admitting her life had changed. Mornings when she forced smiles so Brooklyn wouldn't see the exhaustion behind them. Trying to navigate a new world. Eva had survived it, but the heaviness left shadows. Shadows children can feel even when adults don't speak them aloud. Maybe Brooklyn had been carrying those shadows too. Juneau had a way of amplifying stillness. The hum of the refrigerator. The faint groan of old floorboards, the distant call of a seaplane. Tonight, it felt like the city itself held its breath with her. Eva looked around the apartment, the purple blanket on the couch, crayons scattered from last weekend, a half-finished drawing taped to the fridge. Everything in place. Yet nothing felt in place. The ache wasn't jealousy, it wasn't anger, it was fear. Not fear of Nova, not fear of Marcus. Fear of losing the emotional thread that once tied her so tightly to her daughter. Eva sat on the sofa, hands trembling slightly. The truth surfaced slowly, painfully. Brooklyn wasn't pulling away suddenly. No, this distance had roots. Quiet roots. Deep roots. And today was simply the moment Eva finally saw how far those roots had grown. She pressed a hand to her chest. "I'm losing her," she whispered. But the universe wasn't finished with her. Because soon, very soon, Eva would learn that Brooklyn's distance wasn't rejection. It was protection, and that revelation would unravel everything she thought she understood about her daughter. The morning after Brooklyn stepped away from her at the doorway, Eva sat at her dining table, pushing her oatmeal around with a spoon. Nothing in her apartment felt settled anymore. It wasn't the silence, it was the questions. They hovered over her like a shadow she couldn't outrun. She checked her phone for messages from Marcus. Nothing. No explanation, no attempt to unpack what had happened. CO parenting with him had always been practical, never emotional. If something didn't fit into his neat version of reality, he simply didn't address it. The distance didn't feel new anymore. It felt accumulated, like layers of moments she hadn't paid enough attention to. It started with piano. Brooklyn came home humming a tune Eva didn't recognize. "Nova taught me," she said proudly, miming little notes in the air. Eva remembered smiling, thinking it was sweet, normal even. But then came the Saturday when Brooklyn said, "I can't go out today, Mom. Piano is every Saturday now." Nova signed me up. Signed her up, like she had authority. Eva had swallowed her discomfort then. She didn't want to be the mother who made every little change into a problem. She didn't want Brooklyn to feel pulled between households. But that was only the beginning. Soon piano turned into violin, then art workshops, then Spanish lessons. All introduced with the same bright enthusiasm. Nova said, "This will help me grow." Nova thinks I'm talented. Nova says confidence is important. Each time Brooklyn said her name, Eva felt a tiny sting. Not sharp, just constant. Like a drip of water wearing down stone. It wasn't the activities themselves. They were beautiful opportunities. It was the way they happened. Without her opinion. Without discussion. Without space for her. And each new lesson squeezed out another hour, another moment, another chance for mother and daughter to simply be together. One afternoon, Eva approached Marcus after a drop-off. "Where are all these activities coming from?" she asked, keeping her voice calm. He shrugged. Nova thought they'd be good for her. "I'm not saying they're bad," Eva said carefully, "but we need to talk about them. I should be involved in these decisions." Marcus blinked at her, as if she were making unnecessary noise. "Eva, she's just helping. You should appreciate it. Appreciate it." The words felt like a slap, gentle but dismissive. "That's not the point," she said quietly. "I'm her mother, and Nova isn't trying to take your place," he replied, already half turned away. Their conversation ended there. Not because Eva was done, but because Marcus couldn't see the emotional layers behind her concern. He saw schedules. Eva saw drift. As weeks passed, Brooklyn's attachment deepened. Every story began with "Nova showed me." Every weekend started with "Nova said." Every new passion came tied to Nova's approval. Brooklyn wasn't doing it intentionally. She wasn't trying to push her mother away. Children rarely do. They simply attach themselves to whatever makes them feel guided, encouraged, seen. But to Eva, each enthusiastic mention was another quiet reminder. She was losing shared territory in her daughter's world. The shift became impossible to ignore one evening when Brooklyn practiced violin in her living room. She played with remarkable focus, her small brow furrowed in concentration. Eva placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Baby, you've been practicing for an hour. Maybe take a little break?" Brooklyn lowered the bow and looked at her. Just looked. Not angry, not frustrated, just disappointed. "Mom, don't you want me to do well? Nova says practice makes me stronger." Eva's chest tightened. "Of course I want that. I only meant you should rest." Brooklyn nodded, but there was distance in her eyes, like she was evaluating whether being here meant less growth than being at her father's. That was the moment Eva realized. She wasn't competing with Nova. She was competing with the version of herself Brooklyn believed she had to protect. That night, Eva stood in her kitchen, staring at the blank wall as tears finally gathered. "When did I stop being enough?" she whispered. It was being crowded out. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but consistently, and children respond to consistency more than anything. As she wiped her tears, she felt something shift inside her. Something firm, a new awareness, a new sense of urgency, a new fear she could no longer bury beneath hope. Brooklyn wasn't slipping away by accident. She was being pulled, softly, subtly, into a different emotional orbit, one Eva wasn't invited into. Yet, Brooklyn sat on Eva's bed that evening, swinging her small feet gently as she played with the bracelet wrapped around her wrist. The beads glimmered lightly under the bedside lamp, soft pinks and purples strung together carefully. It wasn't one of the cheap bracelets kids typically wore. It was chosen, thoughtful, personal. But deep down, she knew the problem wasn't being replaced. "Where'd you get that one?" Eva asked, folding a stack of laundry at the foot of the bed. "Nova," Brooklyn answered with a small smile, still tracing the beads with her fingertip. "She said the colors match the way my heart feels." Eva paused mid-fold. It wasn't the gesture itself. It was the meaning. A grown woman attaching emotion to an object meant for a child. It wasn't wrong. It wasn't overstepping in an obvious way. But it hit something fragile in Eva, reminding her how effortlessly Nova seemed to speak into her daughter's world. Brooklyn lifted the bracelet, letting it catch the light. "It makes me feel special." Eva swallowed and forced the gentlest smile she could manage. "It's very pretty, sweetheart." Brooklyn nodded, turning the bracelet again, studying it with admiration that felt deeper than Eva was prepared for. Then, without lifting her eyes, she said it, softly, casually, as if it were the most natural sentence in the world. "Mom, I call Nova my second mommy now." Eva froze. She didn't drop the laundry. She didn't gasp. She didn't react the way her heart instantly did. Sharp, breathless, pierced. She held perfectly still, every muscle tightening the way a mother's does when she hears something she never prepared for. "Second mommy." 2 words, innocent from a child, devastating for a mother. Eva forced her voice to stay level. "Oh?" Eva shook her head immediately. "No, baby, it's okay. I'm glad you feel cared for." Brooklyn smiled, relieved. "Yeah, she's really nice, and she helps me with my songs. And she always listens." The last part stung more than the rest. She always listens. Eva knew Brooklyn didn't mean it in a hurtful way. Children don't measure their words with emotional scales. They speak their experiences without filter or intent. But the meaning behind them settled inside Eva like a quiet ache. Brooklyn climbed off the bed and walked to her backpack, pulling out a small folder filled with sheet music. "Look, she printed these for me. She said I'm getting better." Eva nodded, her throat tight. "That's wonderful, baby." Brooklyn sat cross-legged on the floor, humming a tune as she looked through the papers. Eva watched her from the edge of the bed, holding her breath every few seconds to keep her emotions steady. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't competition. It was heartbreak, the kind only a mother knows when she feels her place shifting without warning. She finished folding the laundry and excused herself to the kitchen. "Mom?" Brooklyn called after her. "Can we practice my song tonight?" Eva forced a smile from the doorway. "Of course we can." But as soon as she stepped into the hallway, out of her daughter's line of sight, her shoulders sagged. She pressed a hand to her chest, steadying the sudden rush of emotion swirling inside her. She whispered to herself, "Hold it together." She didn't mean it that way. But the truth remained. Her daughter had given another woman a title she once held alone. Later that evening, while Brooklyn practiced her violin on the living room rug, Eva watched quietly from the couch. The notes were shaky at first, then steadier, and then, with confidence, Brooklyn's small fingers glided over the strings with the kind of focus that came from feeling supported. "Nova says I have talent," she said between songs. "She says artists always feel deeply." Eva swallowed. "She's right. You do feel deeply." Brooklyn beamed. Eva tried to mirror her excitement, but inside she felt something tugging hard, like the ground beneath her was shifting grain by grain. After practice, Brooklyn curled beside her on the couch, resting her head lightly on Eva's shoulder. "Mom? Yes, sweetheart? Are you mad I call her that?" Eva's chest tightened. "No, baby, I'm not mad. Dad said it's okay to have lots of people who love you." She paused. "But I didn't want you to be sad." Eva stroked her daughter's hair gently. "Thank you for caring. But you don't have to worry about that. I'm okay." Brooklyn relaxed against her, trusting the surface-level answer, never realizing the depth beneath it. Children feel emotions intensely. Mothers feel them in layers. Brooklyn soon drifted into soft humming again, flipping through her music sheets. Eva watched her with a heavy mix of love and fear. The fear wasn't of being replaced. It was of being misunderstood, of watching her daughter attach meaning to words she didn't fully understand, of losing connection through quiet, unintentional shifts. Eva leaned her head back against the couch, blinking slow tears she refused to let fall. This wasn't the moment for confrontation. This wasn't the moment for correction. This was the moment the tension took root, a tension that would shape the emotional storm approaching them in the chapters ahead. And Eva knew one truth with painful clarity. A child's innocent words can break a mother quietly, long before anyone else notices. The next weekend arrived faster than Eva felt prepared for. All week, she carried the weight of Brooklyn's innocent words. "I call Nova my second mommy now." They echoed in her mind at unexpected moments, while making breakfast, while folding laundry, while staring at Brooklyn's empty chair during dinner. She kept telling herself she wouldn't overthink it. She kept telling herself it was just a child expressing comfort. She kept telling herself nothing important had shifted. But deep down, she knew something had. As she approached Marcus and Nova's house, the familiar ache beneath her ribs returned. The sky above Juneau hung in muted grays, and the air smelled faintly of upcoming snow. Eva tightened her coat around her, took a breath, and stepped toward the door. She knocked softly. A few seconds later, the door opened. Brooklyn stood there, small, quiet, her fingers curled into the sleeve of her sweater. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Eva's heart fluttered with hope that her daughter might rush forward with the warmth she used to. Maybe things would feel normal again. Maybe the distance was temporary. "Hi, baby," Eva said gently, lowering herself a little so she wasn't towering over her daughter. Brooklyn didn't smile, didn't move, didn't reach. Her eyes flickered past Eva, as if looking for a signal from somewhere else. Before Eva could speak again, Nova stepped into view behind Brooklyn, calm, composed, hands lightly resting at her sides. She didn't interrupt. She didn't greet. She simply stood there, present but reserved. Her silence created its own quiet boundary, not aggressive, but undeniably there. Eva softened her voice. "Sweetheart, are you ready to go home?" Brooklyn's lips parted, but no words came out immediately. Her gaze drifted to the floor, then to Nova's legs, then back to the ground. Finally she whispered, "I don't want to leave yet." The sentence hung between them like a weight none of them were ready to touch. Eva steadied her breathing. "Why not, baby?" Brooklyn shifted her feet, inching slightly, very slightly, closer to Nova. "I like being here today. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't manipulation. It was uncertainty, wearing the face of a child who didn't know how to choose between what she loved and what she feared disappointing." Nova didn't speak, but her presence felt like a quiet reinforcement of the emotional distance already forming. She wasn't encouraging Brooklyn to stay, but she also wasn't encouraging her to go. She remained neutral, a physical anchor to whichever direction Brooklyn leaned. Eva knelt slowly so she was eye level. "Baby, it's okay to come with me. We'll have a good weekend." Brooklyn's fingertips brushed against Nova's sweater, not gripping it, not hiding behind it, but connecting with it, as though it offered her balance. "I just want to stay here today," she whispered again, voice trembling with an emotion she couldn't name. Eva exhaled softly, attempting to smile even as her chest tightened. "If that's what you need today." "I understand." Brooklyn relaxed, just a little. Relief washed over her posture, relief from the fear of disappointing someone. That small shift broke Eva more than the words themselves. She stood, brushing her hands against her coat. "I'll see you soon, sweetheart." Brooklyn nodded shyly. "Okay, can I get a hug?" Eva asked, heart fragile but hopeful. Brooklyn hesitated. Only for a breath, but hesitation was enough to wound. She stepped forward, offering a small, brief embrace. Not the warm, full hug she used to give. Not the tight squeeze that once told Eva she belonged firmly in her daughter's world. Just a small press of arms, as if Brooklyn was torn between two kinds of comfort and didn't know how to offer either fully. "I love you," Eva whispered into her daughter's hair. "I love you too," Brooklyn said, pulling back quickly, almost too quickly, returning to her place beside Nova. Eva nodded at Nova politely. "Have a good weekend." "You too," Nova replied quietly. As Eva walked back toward her car, she felt Brooklyn's eyes on her, or she hoped they were. But she didn't turn around. She wasn't sure she could handle seeing her daughter lean back toward someone else for reassurance. Back home, the silence wrapped around Eva like a blanket made of cold air. She dropped her keys on the counter and stood still, absorbing the emptiness in the room. The pink blanket on the couch, the teddy bear on the shelf, the drawings on the fridge, the half-finished puzzle on the coffee table. Everything spoke of Brooklyn. Everything reminded her of the weekend she used to cherish. But now the apartment didn't feel like a shared space. It felt like a space waiting for someone who didn't choose to return today. Eva sat on the couch, hands clasped tightly together, her breath catching in small tremors. She leaned her head back, blinking away tears she didn't want to release but couldn't fully contain. "Why won't she talk to me?" she whispered. She wasn't angry at Brooklyn. She wasn't angry at Nova. She wasn't even angry at Marcus. She was devastated, not because she had lost her daughter, but because she no longer understood her daughter's heart. Darling, if you've ever felt pushed aside by someone you love, please like this video and comment. Your engagement helps this story reach more people. And if you're new here, subscribe to Mr. John's Stories for more emotional journeys. Eva stared at the quiet apartment around her, realizing something deeply painful. She wasn't losing Brooklyn quickly. She was losing her quietly. And that kind of loss was far harder to bear. The morning after Brooklyn refused to leave Marcus and Nova's house, Eva woke with the same heaviness she fell asleep with. Her pillow still held the faint trace of tears she didn't let fully fall, and the apartment felt colder than usual, even with the heater humming softly in the corner. Eva sat at the edge of her bed, elbows resting on her knees. She rubbed her palms together slowly, grounding herself. She didn't want her day to be shaped by sadness, but emotional wounds had their own rhythm, slow, persistent, quiet. She needed air. She needed space. She needed a moment that wasn't heavy, so she decided to step out. The streets of Juneau were calm, carrying the familiar chill that accompanied early mornings. She wrapped her scarf around her neck, tucked her hands into her coat pockets, and began walking with no destination in mind. Just movement, just breath, just the need to remind herself she wasn't sinking. Her feet led her toward the harbor, where boats rocked gently against their ropes. The faint sound of water tapping against wood offered a small comfort. She paused, inhaling deeply, but the cold air wasn't enough to soften the ache inside her chest. That's when she saw it, the small cafe on Harborview Street. The place she often passed but rarely visited. Today, something about the warm glow through its windows called to her. She pushed the door open slowly. A soft chime rang above her head, and warmth instantly wrapped around her. The air smelled like freshly brewed coffee and cinnamon. And then she saw him. The man in the forest green jacket, standing at the counter, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed but attentive, a presence that didn't demand attention but naturally drew it. He turned slightly at the sound of the door, and when his eyes met hers, his expression shifted into a gentle smile, one that carried quiet recognition, though they hadn't spoken yet. Eva offered a polite nod before moving toward the register. He stepped slightly to the side, giving her space. "Morning," he said softly. His voice wasn't bold. It wasn't flirtatious. It was warm, steady enough to cut through a part of the heaviness she'd been carrying. "Morning," Eva replied, her tone equally quiet. She ordered her usual caramel latte with oat milk, trying not to think too deeply about why she suddenly felt conscious of her posture, her tone, her breath. The man shifted a little as she waited beside him for their orders. After a moment, he said, "Cold today?" Eva gave a small nod. "Feels colder than usual." "It does," he agreed. Then after a quiet beat, he added, "Days like this make warm coffee feel more like medicine." Eva let out a small, unexpected laugh. "That's exactly how it feels." Their drinks landed on the counter at the same time. "Caramel latte?" the barista asked. They both reached. Their hands brushed. It was brief, subtle, but warm enough to make Eva inhale a tiny breath of surprise. "Oh, sorry," she murmured. "No, that's on me," he said with a soft grin. "I always seem to be in someone's way." His tone was light, disarming. A small spark flickered somewhere low inside her chest. Nothing overwhelming, just a gentle warmth she hadn't felt in months. He lifted his cup slightly. "Enjoy your drink." Eva mirrored the gesture. "You too." He stepped aside, but didn't immediately leave. Instead, he found a small table near the window, close enough for their spaces to feel connected, far enough to respect her boundaries. Eva almost walked out, almost returned to the cold air and the heavy thoughts she carried. But something inside her whispered, "Sit for a moment. Let yourself breathe. You deserve one small break from hurting." So she sat at a table diagonally across from him. When their eyes met again, he offered another gentle nod. As if to say he wasn't intruding, he simply saw her. She hadn't realized how cold she'd felt until that moment. The man glanced at her before looking back out the window. "Some days try to take more out of us than we expect," he said quietly. Not prying, not fishing, just speaking into the space between them. Eva blinked, surprised by the accuracy of his words. That's true. He didn't ask why. He didn't push for details. He simply nodded, acknowledging her experience without needing to hear the story behind it. And that alone made her feel lighter. As she sipped her drink, a gentle realization spread through her. This man wasn't here to heal her. He wasn't here to fill a void. He wasn't here to offer answers. He was simply a presence reminding her she was still human, still allowed moments of connection, still allowed warmth, still allowed sparks, even if they were soft and unexpected. By the time she finished her coffee, the heaviness in her chest hadn't disappeared, but it had shifted, just enough to let in a breath of hope. She stood slowly, pulling her coat tighter. The man looked up, offering a subtle smile. "Take care," he said. "You too," Eva replied. And with that, she walked out of the cafe feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. A small opening. A quiet spark. Eva wrapped her hands around her cup, letting the warmth soothe her fingers. A reminder that life could still surprise her gently. The following Tuesday afternoon, Eva was packing away paperwork in her small home office when her phone buzzed. Marcus. Her stomach tightened at the sight of his name. Their conversations lately had been strained, not because they argued, but because too much was left unsaid between them. She answered anyway. "Hey," she said softly. "Eva, can we talk?" His voice sounded heavier than usual, like he'd been carrying something that had finally grown too heavy to keep inside. "Is Brooklyn okay?" she asked immediately. "Yes, she's fine. She's at her dance session right now. This is about something else." Eva sat slowly in her chair. "All right, what's going on?" There was a long pause, long enough for her pulse to pick up slightly. "Can I stop by?" he asked. "It's easier if I say it face to face." Eva hesitated. "Sure. Come by." 20 minutes later, a soft knock sounded at her door. She opened it to find Marcus standing there, hands shoved deep into the pockets of his jacket, eyes tired. Not angry, not defensive, just tired. "Come in," she said quietly. He stepped inside, glancing briefly at the living room, the blanket draped over the couch, Brooklyn's coloring book on the coffee table, the faint smell of vanilla from the candle Eva had lit earlier. A space that held memories he no longer lived in, but still recognized. They sat opposite each other. "What's this about?" Eva asked, bracing herself. Marcus exhaled slowly, as if preparing to lift a truth he had kept buried too long. It's about Nova. Immediately, Ava's shoulders stiffened. She didn't want another debate about parenting styles. She didn't want to defend her emotions again. But something in Marcus's expression stopped her from jumping to conclusions. "This isn't an argument," he said, noticing her tension. "It's something I should have told you a long time ago." Ava waited. Marcus rubbed his palms together, trying to find the right place to start. "Nova can't have children," he said finally. Eva blinked. It wasn't the revelation she expected. It wasn't even a direction she anticipated. The room felt still, like the air itself paused. "She can't?" Eva repeated, her voice soft. He shook his head. "She tried for years before meeting me. Treatments, surgeries, specialists, everything. Nothing worked." Eva felt a slow shift inside her, like puzzle pieces moving into unfamiliar positions. Marcus continued. "When we got married, she told me she'd made peace with it. She said she accepted her life, accepted her limitations. But I don't think she ever fully healed from it." Eva wasn't sure what to say yet. The information carved a new shape in her understanding, one she wasn't sure how to hold yet. "She loves Brooklyn," Marcus said, his voice cracking slightly. "Maybe too deeply at times. She gets attached fast. She always has, even before me. Not because she wants to replace you. Not because she wants to compete, but because she's been carrying a wound that never closed." Eva stared at her hands. The bracelet Brooklyn had received flashed through her memory. The lessons. The gifts. But now, instead of competition, a different image formed. An empty nursery in someone else's past. Untouched toys. Medical bills. Quiet crying in the bathroom at midnight. Marcus swallowed hard. "I should have told you. I should have explained it sooner. Maybe you wouldn't have felt so blindsided." Ava looked up, her voice steady but emotional. "Why didn't you?" "Because I didn't want you to think she was trying to take your place. She admires you. She actually talks about you more than you know. She just doesn't know how to navigate her own emotions." Ava inhaled slowly. The tightness she'd been carrying felt different now, not lighter but less confusing. Pain mixed with understanding. "You're not excusing everything," Eva said quietly. "No, I'm not. Some boundaries got crossed, and I should have stepped in earlier." Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. But she wasn't acting out of competition. She was acting out of longing. She sees Brooklyn as the child she never got to have. Ava's chest tightened again, but in a new way. She still hurt. Nothing erased the pain she felt at the door. The hesitation in her daughter's hug. The word second mommy. But for the first time, she saw another layer beneath it all. A layer she hadn't known existed. Marcus leaned forward. "Ava, I'm sorry." The apology wasn't rushed. It wasn't wrapped in excuses. It was real. "I didn't realize how much this was affecting you," he continued. "I thought Brooklyn's excitement was harmless. I thought you'd appreciate the support. I didn't see how hard it was for you to watch her bond with someone else." Eva's eyes stung. "I never wanted to resent her," she whispered. "I just felt like I was losing my daughter and didn't know why." Marcus nodded slowly. "You weren't losing her. She was trying to manage two worlds without hurting anyone." Silence settled between them. Not heavy, but thoughtful. Eva pressed her hand against her heart, grounding herself. "Thank you for telling me." Marcus exhaled, relieved. "You deserve to know." For the first time in weeks, Eva felt something shift inside her. A small, steadying clarity. Not everything made sense yet. Not every wound was healed. But the fog around her daughter's behavior began to lift. This wasn't a story of rivalry. It was a story of emotional wounds intertwining in complicated ways. And now that she knew the truth, the road ahead, though still difficult, felt less confusing. The week after Marcus revealed the truth about Nova's infertility, something inside Eva shifted. Not dramatically, but steadily, like a door that had been jammed for months, finally loosening. For the first time in a long time, She didn't spend every hour questioning her worth as a mother. She didn't replay every interaction with Brooklyn looking for hidden meanings. She didn't feel as lost, but understanding Nova didn't solve everything. It didn't answer the most important question. Why did Brooklyn hesitate to come home? That answer arrived unexpectedly through a single text from Marcus. Brooklyn had a tough therapy session today. Can we talk? Eva stared at the message, her thumb hovering. Therapy was something they both agreed on months earlier. Not because Brooklyn was emotionally unstable, but because the divorce had shaken her more than they initially realized. She was a quiet child, thoughtful and sensitive, the kind who absorbed tension silently. Eva replied, "Yes, call me." The phone rang almost instantly. "Hey," Marcus said, voice soft. "Is she okay?" "She will be," he answered, "but something came up. Something you need to know." Eva braced herself. What did she say? There was a pause, too long to be casual. "Brooklyn told her therapist she's scared of disappointing you," Marcus finally said. Eva's breath caught. "What?" she whispered. "She thinks she has to hide her interests around you, so you don't feel hurt." Eva closed her eyes, leaning against the back of the couch. "But I've never—" "I know," Marcus said gently. "This isn't about what you did. It's about how she interpreted things." Eva swallowed hard, steadying herself as he continued. "The therapist asked her why she enjoys the activities with Nova so much. Do you know what she said?" Eva shook her head, though he couldn't see her. The words hit like a quiet punch. "She said you looked hurt the first time she mentioned piano," Marcus continued. "And because she's so sensitive, she thought she caused it. So she started holding back, smiling less, sharing less. Not because she didn't want to tell you, but because she didn't want to hurt you." Eva pressed her fingers to her lips, tears pressing hard behind her eyes. "Marcus, I never wanted her to feel that way." "I know. The therapist knows. But kids see emotion before they see truth." Eva sank into the sofa, a heavy mixture of relief and grief settling in her chest. "So all this time," she whispered, "she wasn't pulling away because she wanted to leave me behind?" "No," Marcus said firmly. "She was trying to protect you." She said, "I don't want Mom to think she's being replaced." At those words, Eva broke, not from shame, not from anger, from love, from the realization that her daughter had been carrying guilt far too heavy for a child. She wiped her face quickly. "Did she say anything else?" "Yes," Marcus replied. "She told the therapist that she likes her new hobbies, but she felt caught between two homes, like choosing joy in one place meant hurting the other." Eva pressed her hand against her heart, feeling its ache deepen. Her little girl had been living in emotional conflict, trying to protect everyone but herself. "And there's more," Marcus added quietly. "She said she didn't tell you because she didn't want to lose the happy look you give her when she climbs into your car on weekends." Eva's eyes filled again. That tiny detail, the happy look, was something she didn't even know her daughter noticed. "She thought," Marcus continued, "that if she talked too much about Nova, that happiness might fade." Eva covered her mouth, overwhelmed. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I didn't know she was carrying that." "No one did," Marcus said. "Not even Nova. The therapist said Brooklyn's been trying to balance everyone's emotions except her own." Eva sat in silence, letting the truth settle. Her daughter wasn't rejecting her. Her daughter wasn't replacing her. Her daughter wasn't choosing another home. She was trying not to break the heart of the mother she adored. That realization cut deep, but not painfully. It cut in a way that opened understanding. "Thank you for telling me," Eva finally said. "She asked if she could talk to you," Marcus added. "Not today, but soon. She wants to explain in her own words." "I'd like that," Eva said softly. As they ended the call, Eva remained seated on the couch, breathing slowly. The apartment around her felt different, not empty, but waiting. Brooklyn wasn't drifting away. She was overwhelmed, conflicted, trying to juggle love she didn't know how to distribute evenly. Eva wiped her cheeks, steadier now. She knew what she needed to do. She needed to meet her daughter where she was, not through questions, not through pressure, but through presence. Through love that didn't collapse under the weight of a child's growing world. Darling, if you've ever misunderstood someone you love, only to later learn their heart was protecting yours, please like this video and comment below. Your engagement helps these stories reach more people who need them. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to Mr. John Stories for more powerful narratives. After hearing what Brooklyn told her therapist, Eva spent the evening seated near the window, watching the soft light of early morning touch the edges of Juneau. The city always had a quiet way of holding space for people, never rushing them, never demanding more than they could give. Today, that stillness felt like an invitation to breathe again. Eva wrapped her fingers around a warm mug and let the steam brush against her face. For the first time in months, she wasn't trying to decode Brooklyn's distance or guess the meaning behind every hesitant look. Instead, she finally saw the truth. Her daughter had never stopped loving her. She had simply been overwhelmed. That understanding softened something inside Eva, something that had been clenched tight since the day Brooklyn stepped away on the porch. She whispered into the quiet apartment, "You are protecting me, baby. Not leaving me." The weight of those words filtered through her slowly. Every confused moment, every skipped weekend, every quiet car ride, it all made sense now. Brooklyn wasn't choosing Nova over her. She was trying to protect one parent from the happiness she experienced with the other. A child shouldn't have to carry that kind of responsibility. But Brooklyn had done it anyway, out of love. Eva closed her eyes, letting that realization settle deeply. For months, she believed she was losing her daughter. Now she understood she needed to make space for her daughter to grow without feeling guilty. She pressed a hand to her chest and whispered, "I'm going to do better. For both of us." Eva stepped outside later that day, needing fresh air. The cold brushed her cheeks as she walked toward the local community center, a place she used to visit often before life pulled her into emotional survival mode. Inside, the hall was warm and alive with the sound of laughter. Families gathered for a small cultural event, sharing food, stories, and the kind of humor that stitched people together. Music played softly in the background, and children ran around with joy painted across their faces. Eva didn't expect the warmth to hit her so quickly. "Eva!" a familiar voice called from the food table. It was an older woman from her workplace, waving her over with a knowing smile. "You look like you need a plate," she said. "Come on, sweetheart. No one heals on an empty stomach." Eva laughed, a real laugh she hadn't felt in weeks. The woman piled her plate with generous helpings of baked chicken, cornbread, and greens. "Eat," the woman insisted. "Heartache burns more energy than running." Eva shook her head with a smile. "You always know what to say." "I've lived," the woman replied with a wink. "And living teaches you a lot." Eva took a seat near a group of women laughing loudly at a friend's story about her grandson's mischievous adventures. For a moment, the noise, the warmth, the joy, it wrapped around Eva like a soft blanket. She felt human again, not a mother fighting fear, not an ex-wife navigating complex layers of blended family dynamics. Just Eva, a woman who still deserved moments of joy. She took a slow breath, letting that truth settle. Later, when the event was winding down, Eva stepped outside into the cool air. She leaned against the railing and looked toward the mountains. Their outlines softened beneath the shifting sky. The quiet allowed her thoughts to gather naturally. Brooklyn didn't pull away intentionally. Brooklyn didn't reject her. Brooklyn wasn't choosing sides. She was a child caught between two parents who loved her deeply, but didn't always communicate their pain clearly. Eva realized she needed to shift from taking every moment personally to seeing the emotional weight her daughter carried. She had to offer tenderness that felt safe, not fragile. And she had to let Brooklyn know, gently, consistently, that she could explore her interests without hurting her mother. Eva whispered into the cool air, "I won't let you feel responsible for my heart anymore." For the first time in a long time, she felt calm. Not healed yet, but grounded. Standing on steadier emotional footing, ready to reach for her daughter not with fear, but with clarity. Darling, if you've ever carried emotions you didn't know how to express, or misunderstood someone you love, Please like this video and comment your thoughts below. Your engagement helps Mr. John Stories reach more hearts that need these messages. And if you're new, subscribe so you never miss another powerful story. The next morning, Eva woke with a calmness she hadn't felt in weeks. It wasn't joy exactly, but it was a softer, steadier kind of peace, the kind that settles into a heart, finally beginning to understand what truly happened, rather than what fear suggested. Brooklyn wasn't slipping away. She was overwhelmed, and Eva finally had the clarity to guide her with love, not anxiety. She brushed her fingers along the edge of her mug as she sipped tea, the morning sunlight stretching across her kitchen counter. A quiet resolve bloomed inside her chest. Gentle, but real. She whispered to herself, "We're going to be okay." Not because everything was fixed, but because she finally understood the road ahead. By midday, Eva felt the pull to step outside. She needed light, movement, fresh air. Healing felt different now, less like survival, more like renewal. Juneau's harbor wasn't busy that day, and she walked the wooden planks slowly, letting the breeze kiss her cheeks and the distant calls of birds fill the quiet spaces in her mind. She slipped into her favorite cafe, as much out of habit as comfort. The familiar scent of roasted beans and warm pastries greeted her the moment she stepped inside. What she didn't expect was him. He stood near the counter, hands tucked casually in his pockets, posture easy, presence warm. Something about him always felt unforced, as if he understood how to hold space without crowding it. He noticed her almost instantly. His eyes softened, and that gentle smile appeared, the same one that lingered in her thoughts longer than she cared to admit the first time they met. "Well, look who the universe insists on bringing my way again," he said softly. Eva felt her cheeks warm. "Or maybe you're just always in my favorite spot." "Oh, so now it's your spot?" he teased lightly. His tone wasn't flirtatious in a loud, dramatic way. It was softer, warmer, the kind that made Eva's heart flutter with a reminder she wasn't just a mother navigating pain. She was still a woman capable of connection. She stepped up beside him at the counter. "You still chasing blueberry pastries?" she asked. "I would be," he replied, "but someone keeps getting here before me." She laughed again, and for the first time the laughter didn't feel borrowed from a moment of distraction. It felt genuine, natural, hers. They talked as they waited for their orders, nothing heavy, nothing rushed. He told her about a book he'd been reading. She shared a funny story from the community event. He listened, not just to reply, but to understand. It was a small thing, but meaningful. Eva realized how long it had been since she felt seen without expectation, without judgment, without emotional weight pressing between words. When their drinks were ready, he gestured toward an empty booth. "Only if you want company," he said. "No pressure." She surprised herself by agreeing. They sat facing each other, warm mugs between their hands. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, like stepping stones across a calm stream. She didn't talk about Marcus. She didn't talk about the storm she had been navigating for months. She talked about herself, or rather the parts of herself she hadn't visited in a long time. The parts that still had hopes, interests, humor, softness, and he met her there, steadily, warmly. She didn't even know his name yet, but she knew how she felt in his presence. Light, relaxed, human again. When their drinks were nearly finished, he glanced at her with a softness that made her breath still. "You seem a little less weighed down today," he said quietly. "I'm glad." Eva looked into her cup, tracing the rim with her thumb. "I'm trying," she admitted. "Life's been complicated." His nod was gentle, understanding without prying. "Well," he replied, "whatever you're working through, you're doing better than you think." The words landed deeper than he knew. No pressure, no assumptions, just encouragement, the kind Eva didn't realize she desperately needed. When they walked outside, the crisp air met them again. He held the door open with a small smile. "Maybe I'll see you again," he said. "Juneau's not that big." Eva felt a spark, quiet but undeniable. "I'd like that." Later that afternoon, Brooklyn video called her unexpectedly, her little face filling the phone screen. "Mom," she said brightly. "You look happy today." Eva blinked, surprised by how accurately her daughter could see straight through her. "I guess I am," Eva replied with a soft smile. Brooklyn grinned. "I like when you smile like that." Eva touched her chest, feeling her heart stretch, not from pain but from healing. Maybe life wasn't just repairing what broke. Maybe it was also rediscovering what had been waiting quietly inside her. Darling, if you believe healing can come from unexpected places, please like this video and comment your thoughts below. The morning after Eva's quiet moment of peace, she moved around her apartment with a lighter step. It wasn't happiness, not fully, just a calm understanding that the storm inside her had finally shifted. Healing doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it arrives as something as simple as breathing without pressure on your chest. She made breakfast slowly, humming without realizing it, letting the warmth from the stove settle into the room. Brooklyn was supposed to be with Marcus for another 2 days, so Eva planned to use the morning for quiet reflection and maybe a walk later. But life often arrives unscheduled, measured. Eva wiped her hands and walked toward the door, not expecting anything unusual. When she opened it, her breath caught. Marcus stood in the hallway, coat unzipped, expression tense, and beside him, half hidden behind the sleeve of his jacket, stood Brooklyn. Eva blinked. "What? What's going on? Is everything okay?" Marcus cleared his throat, his voice low. "She wanted to come. I thought it was important." Brooklyn remained still, shoulders slightly hunched, fingers curling around the fabric of her jacket. She didn't step forward. She didn't speak. She simply stood there with the look of a child carrying a truth too heavy for her small frame. Eva's heart softened immediately. She crouched down just enough to meet her daughter's eyes, her voice gentle. "Hi, baby. You want to come in?" Brooklyn gave a tiny nod. No running, no bright greeting. Just a quiet nod. It spoke louder than any words. Eva stepped aside, letting her daughter slip inside. Marcus remained at the doorway for a moment, rubbing the back of his neck. "She's been quiet all morning," he said. "Didn't want to talk to me. Didn't want to eat. Just kept saying she needed to see you." Eva's stomach tightened. Did something happen? Marcus shook his head. No event triggered it. She just looked like she had something she needed to get off her chest. I thought forcing her to wait would make it worse. Eva nodded, appreciating the decision. "Thank you," she said sincerely. He nodded back before stepping away from the doorway. "Call me if she needs anything." "I'll check in later." When he left, Eva closed the door softly, turning her full attention to the silent little girl standing in the middle of the living room. Brooklyn looked around as though the room was both familiar and foreign, like she remembered every corner, but wasn't sure she still belonged in it. Her backpack hung loosely from her shoulder, slipping a little, but she didn't adjust it. Eva approached slowly, careful not to overwhelm her. "You can put your bag down if you want," she whispered. Brooklyn nodded again and set it beside the couch. Still no hug. No words. Just a thick, heavy silence that stretched through the room. Children don't always express their emotions through loud outbursts. Sometimes the quiet moments carry the most weight. And right now, Brooklyn's silence felt dense, not avoidant, but contemplative, like she was holding something inside, organizing it carefully before letting it out. Eva sat gently on the couch, patting the spot beside her. "Come sit, baby." Brooklyn hesitated, then took a few small steps and climbed onto the far end of the cushion. Not close enough to lean on her mother, but close enough to show she was ready. Ready for something. Ready to break the stillness. Eva didn't push, didn't rush, didn't fill the silence with guesses. She simply sat beside her daughter, hands folded quietly, letting Brooklyn's emotions settle in their own time. Minutes passed, long ones, heavy but necessary. Brooklyn's feet dangled above the floor, swinging lightly, not with energy but nervousness. Eva watched her gently, offering presence without pressure. The moment felt like the calm before truth, not dramatic, just honest. In those minutes of silence, Eva felt something different inside her. A few months ago, she would have asked too many questions, worried aloud, or tried to force clarity. But now, after learning what Brooklyn had been carrying, she understood that her daughter didn't need interrogation. She needed space. Space to speak without fear of causing sadness. Space to release guilt she never should have held. Space to feel safe with her mother again. Ava realized that she wasn't waiting for an explanation. She was waiting for Brooklyn to feel ready. She leaned back slightly and said softly, "I'm here. Whenever you want to talk, I'm right here." Brooklyn's eyes flickered with something. Relief, fear, love, all tangled together. After another quiet minute, Brooklyn shifted closer. Not much, just an inch or two, but it was enough to make Ava's throat tighten. It was the first physical sign that Brooklyn wasn't avoiding her. She was gathering courage. The apartment felt full again, not with laughter or chatter, but with a gentle hum of emotion being handled carefully. A mother and daughter sitting in the same room, both holding their breath for different reasons. Brooklyn's fingers fidgeted in her lap. Her breathing grew uneven. She was getting close. Eva sensed it. Something inside this child was finally ready to spill over, and when it did, it would change everything. Darling, if you've ever held emotions you were afraid to express, or waited for someone you love to open up, please like this video and comment below. Your engagement helps Mr. John Stories reach more people who need heartfelt storytelling like. And if you're new, make sure you subscribe for more powerful lessons wrapped in unforgettable narratives. The silence between them softened, but it didn't disappear. It held a quiet tension, one that didn't hurt, but still hummed with something unspoken. Brooklyn sat curled slightly forward, fingers twisting the hem of her shirt, eyes drifting toward the floor every few seconds. Ava didn't rush her, didn't shift, didn't breathe too loudly. She knew this moment wasn't about her pain or fear. It was about creating space for her daughter to finally stop carrying something alone. After a long stretch of quiet, Brooklyn inhaled shakily. "Mom." Ava's heart fluttered at the sound. "Yes, baby, I'm right here." Brooklyn swallowed, her throat moving visibly. She hugged her knees a little closer, not hiding, but bracing. "I didn't want to make you cry." Eva's chest tightened, not with fear, but with the weight of understanding. She softened her voice. "Oh, sweetheart. You don't ever have to protect me from your feelings." Brooklyn wiped her cheek quickly before a tear could fall. "But I thought, if I liked things at Dad's house, you would think I didn't like being here." Ava breathed in slowly, fighting the urge to reach for her immediately. Brooklyn needed to finish. She needed to let it out. So Ava whispered, "Tell me everything." "I'm listening, baby." Brooklyn's small fingers continued twisting. She didn't look away from her lap when she spoke again. "Sometimes. I like the music, and the lessons, and Nova gets excited when I do good." Her voice cracked. "And I like when people are proud of me." Eva blinked slowly, absorbing every word. "That's a wonderful thing," she whispered. Brooklyn shook her head quickly. "But I got scared. I thought, if I talked about it, you would think she was better." Eva's breath hitched, not from shock, but from seeing exactly how much pressure an 8-year-old had been carrying. "Baby." Eva carefully placed her hand on the couch cushion between them, not touching Brooklyn yet, just offering presence. "Liking something doesn't mean you're replacing me." Brooklyn's chin trembled. "But I didn't want to make you sad." Eva felt tears prick her eyes. "Sweetheart, your joy could never make me sad." Brooklyn sniffed. "But you cried once. After I talked about something at Dad's." Eva stiffened slightly. A memory flashed, one she hadn't known Brooklyn saw. A night she cried quietly in the kitchen because she felt the fear of losing her daughter. Brooklyn noticed, and she absorbed it. Ava's heart broke in a new way. She kept her voice steady. "I shouldn't have cried in front of you. That was my hurt, not your fault." Brooklyn finally looked up. Her eyes were big, glossy, and full of everything she'd been holding. "I thought, if I liked being there, then you would think I didn't want you." Eva swallowed the ache in her throat. I never thought that, not for 1 second. But I didn't know. Her voice cracked again, so I stayed quiet. And then the quiet felt heavy. Brooklyn didn't. She leaned into her mother's hand, small cheek pressing gently against Ava's warm palm. As soon as Ava touched her, Brooklyn's breath stuttered, like she'd been holding herself rigid for far too long. "Come here, baby," Ava whispered. This time Brooklyn didn't hesitate. She crawled across the small gap between them and collapsed into her mother's arms, her small body shaking with quiet sobs. Ava held her close, cradling her, rocking her slightly, smoothing her curls. "It's okay," Ava whispered into her daughter's hair. "Let it out. I'm right here." Brooklyn's words came muffled against her chest. "I thought you wouldn't want me anymore." Ava froze, not from fear, but from the sheer heartbreak of the sentence. She lifted Brooklyn's face gently. "Baby, why would you ever think that?" Brooklyn's tears rolled freely now. "Because when someone else liked me too, I didn't want you to think I was choosing." Eva pulled her close again, kissing her forehead. "You don't ever have to choose between love and love," she whispered. "There's room for everyone who cares about you, and you will always, always be my heart." Brooklyn sniffled hard. "Really?" "Really," Eva promised. "You're mine forever. You never stopped being mine." Brooklyn clung to her tighter, arms wrapped fully around her mother's waist now. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Eva shook her head gently. "No, baby. You didn't do anything wrong. You were just scared. And now you don't have to be scared anymore." Brooklyn buried her face into Ava's chest again, this time not in fear, but in relief. After a few minutes, Brooklyn's sobs softened. She pulled back slightly but stayed in Ava's lap, curling against her like she used to months ago. Ava stroked her cheek. "I love you more than anything in this world." Brooklyn nodded into her. "I love you too, Mom." "And nothing," Ava whispered. "Not lessons, not activities, not other people, not other places. Nothing can change that." Brooklyn played with her mother's fingers, calming. "I don't want to hide things anymore," she said softly. "I want to tell you stuff without being scared you'll get sad." Ava smiled, brushing a tear from Brooklyn's cheek. "Then that's exactly what we'll do." "Really?" Brooklyn asked, looking hopeful. Ava nodded. "Yes, baby. You talk. I listen. Always." Brooklyn rested her head on Eva's shoulder, a long exhale leaving her small body, as if she finally set down a weight she'd been carrying for months. Eva kissed the top of her daughter's head. "Thank you for telling me the truth," she whispered. "That was very brave." Brooklyn smiled weakly. "My tummy doesn't feel tight anymore." Eva hugged her close. "That's because you finally let your heart breathe, sweetheart." And in that moment, the bond that had felt stretched, shaken, and almost lost, became stronger than ever. Darling, if this emotional moment touched your heart the way it touched Eva's, please like this video and comment your thoughts. It helps this channel reach more people who need stories like this. And if you're new here, subscribe to Mr. John's Stories for more powerful chapters every week. The storm inside Brooklyn had finally quieted, but the room still held the soft echoes of her confession. She remained curled against Eva, breathing slow and deep now, each breath settling her small body more comfortably into her mother's arms. Eva didn't rush to move. Didn't speak too soon. Didn't shift her weight even though her arm had begun to tingle from holding her daughter so tightly. Some moments weren't meant to be interrupted. When Brooklyn finally sat up, her cheeks were still damp, but her eyes looked clearer, like someone who had finally put words to a feeling they'd been scared to name. Ava brushed a stray curl from her forehead. "How's your heart feeling now, baby?" Brooklyn thought for a moment, pressing her fingers gently against her chest, as if testing her own answer. "It feels not tight anymore," she whispered. "Just warm." Eva smiled, her voice tender. "Good. That's how it should feel." Brooklyn scooted closer until her legs were tucked under her mother's arm again. "Can we just sit for a little?" "As long as you want," Eva said softly. So they sat, quiet, peaceful, connected. The kind of silence that healed instead of hurt. After a few minutes, Brooklyn lifted her head slightly. "Mom?" "Yes, sweetheart. Can we make cocoa? The kind with the little marshmallows?" Brooklyn's expression softened into a small, hopeful smile. "And will you sit with me while I drink it?" Ava's heart squeezed warmly. "I wouldn't want to be anywhere else." She stood, taking Brooklyn's hand in hers. The small fingers felt firmer now, less hesitant, more sure. Together they walked to the kitchen, the warmth of the home wrapping around them like a gentle blanket. Eva set a pot on the stove, heating the milk. Brooklyn climbed onto her usual stool, her cocoa seat as she called it when she was younger. Eva's movements were soft and steady. Spoon tapping gently, milk swirling slowly, chocolate dissolving into a warm, velvety brown. Brooklyn watched with quiet focus, her chin resting on her arms. "Mom?" Eva turned slightly. "Yes? Are you mad at me for not talking sooner?" Eva reached across the counter and held her daughter's hand. "No, baby. I'm proud of you. Talking about scary feelings is hard, even for grown-ups." Brooklyn nodded thoughtfully. "I didn't know when the right time was." Eva squeezed her hand gently. "The right time is whenever your heart needs to speak. And I'll always listen." Brooklyn smiled softly, relieved. When the cocoa was ready, Eva placed the warm cup in front of her daughter. Brooklyn cupped it with both hands, letting the steam brush her cheeks. "Mom?" she whispered again. Eva leaned on the counter, giving her full attention. "I'm right here, sweetheart." Brooklyn stared at the floating marshmallows before speaking. "I was scared that, when I liked being at Dad's house, you'd think I didn't want to be with you." Eva shook her head gently. "Oh, honey, liking something somewhere else doesn't take anything away from what we have here." "But I didn't know that," Brooklyn said quietly. "I should have told you earlier," Eva replied, "that you're allowed to enjoy things anywhere. You're allowed to grow. You're allowed to have fun. And none of it means you're choosing one home over the other." Brooklyn's shoulders relaxed again. "Really?" she whispered. Eva smiled warmly. "Really?" Brooklyn took a sip of cocoa, letting the warmth settle into her. She looked calmer now, lighter, freer. After a few moments, Brooklyn set the cup down and spoke in a smaller voice. "Mom, I didn't tell you this part." Eva kept her posture relaxed. "It's okay, baby. Tell me whenever you're ready." Brooklyn's fingers traced the rim of the mug. "Sometimes I feel like I have to make Nova happy," she said. "Like, if I don't try really hard, I'll hurt her feelings." Eva inhaled softly, surprised but calm. "Did she tell you that?" Brooklyn shook her head quickly. "No, she's nice, really nice, but she looks sad sometimes. When I don't do something right." Eva nodded slowly, understanding the emotional weight her daughter had been carrying. "You don't have to carry anyone's sadness," she said gently. "Not mine. Not Dad's. Not Nova's. Adults have to take care of their own feelings." Brooklyn looked up. "So, it's not my job?" Eva cupped her daughter's cheek. "No, sweetheart. Your only job is to be a child, to learn, to laugh, to enjoy things, not to fix grown-up hearts." Brooklyn exhaled deeply, as if releasing something she had held inside for far too long. When they moved back to the couch, Brooklyn immediately curled against Ava's side, naturally, comfortably, without hesitation. "Mom?" "Yes, baby. Are we okay now?" Ava wrapped an arm around her. "We were always okay. We just needed to talk." Brooklyn smiled, nestling into her. "I feel safe." Eva kissed the top of her head. "That's all I ever want for you." They stayed like that, wrapped in the warmth of honesty and love, letting the healing begin. Gently, quietly, fully. For the first time in months, Eva felt her home breathe again. And Brooklyn felt safe again. Darling, if this touching moment warmed your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe to Mr. John's Stories. Your engagement helps these powerful narratives reach more people who need them. The afternoon light fell softly across Nova's living room as Ava stepped inside, her hands calm but her heart steady with a sense of purpose. She had spent the morning grounding herself, breathing deeply, centering her thoughts, and preparing to walk into a conversation that had been building silently for months. Brooklyn was at school. Marcus had arranged his schedule to give them space, and for the first time since their tangled dynamic began, all three adults were finally ready to face the truth. Nova stood a few feet away, her hands clasped gently in front of her, eyes filled with unmistakable vulnerability. She wasn't the confident, composed woman Ava had seen so many times before. Today, she looked human, softened by guilt, uncertainty, and a desperate desire to make things right. "Ava," she said quietly, "thank you for coming." Ava nodded. "We needed this." The room felt still, not tense, not hostile, but heavy with mutual acknowledgement. The weight of unspoken misunderstandings floated between them, ready to be unraveled. They sat, not opposite each other like adversaries, but angled in a way that left room for honesty, for compassion, for closure. Nova exhaled shakily. "I want to start with the truth. I crossed boundaries I shouldn't have. I stepped into spaces that weren't mine to fill." Eva didn't flinch. She didn't interrupt. She simply listened. "I wasn't trying to replace you," Nova continued, voice cracking. "But I can see now how my actions made it feel that way. All the lessons, the gifts, the planning. I thought I was helping. I thought I was supporting Brooklyn, but I didn't consider how it affected you." Eva swallowed softly, her voice steady. "I appreciate you saying that." Nova's eyes glistened. "I wasn't competing with you. I was trying to fill something inside myself. Something I didn't know how to talk about." Eva knew what that something was, but she waited, giving Nova the dignity of voicing her own truth. "I can't have children," Nova whispered, "and I've spent so many years pretending I didn't care. But when Brooklyn came along, She inhaled sharply. "I didn't realize how deeply I'd attach, or how hard it would be to control it." Eva felt the weight of those words, not as a rival, but as a woman who understood emotional wounds. "I'm sorry," Nova said again, wiping her cheek. "Not just for the lessons or the gifts, but for unintentionally creating pressure for her, for making her feel like she had to please me." Eva leaned forward slightly. "Nova, I never thought you were malicious. I was confused and hurt. But I understand you better now." Nova looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. "But," Eva continued with gentle firmness, "understanding doesn't erase the impact. We need clarity, we need balance, and Brooklyn needs all of us to be aligned." Nova nodded quickly. "Absolutely. Please, just tell me what you need from me." Eva took a measured breath, choosing her words with the care of someone who understood the power they carried. "First," she said softly, "no major decisions about Brooklyn. Lessons, programs, routines, without both her parents agreeing." Nova nodded immediately. "Of course." "Second," Eva continued, "I need you to be mindful of your emotional presence. Brooklyn is sensitive. She picks up on tension, disappointment, pressure. She feels it all." Nova bowed her head. "I know. And I'm working on that in therapy." "Good," Eva replied. "She shouldn't feel responsible for making you happy." Nova's eyes glistened again. "I never wanted that." "I know," Eva said warmly, "and I believe you. But now we understand how she interpreted things. We adjust." Nova exhaled with relief. "I can do that. I will do that." "Third," Eva said gently, "I want open communication. If something feels off, we address it. Woman to woman, not through silence or assumptions." Nova gave a small, grateful smile. "I'd like that." Eva nodded. The atmosphere shifted, not hostility dissolving, but unity forming. For the first time, they weren't standing on opposite ends of Brooklyn's emotional world. "So do I," Eva replied. Their eyes met, and in that shared look was something simple and profoundly human. Two women who loved the same child. Two women who never meant to hurt one another. Two women finally choosing grace over misunderstanding. "Thank you for giving me the chance to apologize," Nova whispered. "You didn't have to." Eva offered a soft smile. "We're both here because Brooklyn needs stability. She needs truth. She needs safety, and that starts with us." Nova nodded slowly, absorbing the words like medicine. "She loves you," Nova added gently. "Deeply. You're her anchor." Eva's chest warmed. "And she loves you too. That doesn't threaten me anymore. I just want her to feel free to love without fear." A relieved breath left Nova's lips. "Then let's build that freedom together." Eva stood, and Nova rose with her. There was no hug, no dramatic embrace. Just a steady, mutual acknowledgement that healing had begun. As Eva stepped outside, a quiet peace settled over her. A peace rooted in understanding, boundaries, and compassion. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was losing anything. She felt like she was rebuilding something important. Not just her relationship with Brooklyn, but the emotional ecosystem her daughter lived in. And with Nova now on the same page, Brooklyn's heart finally had room to breathe. The next morning arrived quietly in Juneau, with a soft layer of fog drifting low across the streets. Eva stood by her window, hands wrapped around a warm mug of tea, feeling a peace she hadn't known in months. Yesterday's conversation with Nova had given her something she didn't realize she was desperate for: understanding, and a clean emotional slate. For the first time since the divorce, her chest wasn't tight, her mind wasn't spinning, her heart wasn't bracing for another subtle heartbreak. She felt open, not exposed, not fragile, open, and in that openness lived something gentle, something she hadn't allowed herself to feel for a long time. Possibility. After getting ready, she grabbed her coat and keys, planning to stop by the cafe before heading to work. Not because she hoped to see him, but because she wanted warmth this morning. She wanted the soft comfort of routine. But routine had a surprise waiting. The bell above the cafe door chimed softly when she stepped inside, and there he was again, standing sideways at the counter, hands in his pockets, forest green jacket zipped halfway, looking both calm and quietly thoughtful. He turned at the sound of the door, and when his eyes met hers, something warm flickered across his face. "There you are," he said with a soft grin. "Juneau's most consistent cafe companion." Eva laughed under her breath. "I could say the same about you." He nodded toward the counter. "Go ahead. I already ordered. I'm just pretending to look at pastries I definitely don't need." Eva stepped beside him, and losing the imaginary battle against them, every single time, she smiled, genuinely, without effort. It didn't escape him. "You look lighter today," he said gently. "Did something good happen?" Eva hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, something very good, actually." He didn't pry. He didn't tilt his head with curiosity. He simply said, "I'm glad," in a tone so sincere that it softened her heart. When her drink order was called, he walked with her to a small corner table, pausing as if waiting for her permission to join her. She nodded toward the empty chair. "Sit." He smiled and took the seat. They sat facing each other, warm drinks in hand, as morning light softened the edges of the cafe. Not awkwardly, comfortably. Their silence felt like a conversation in itself. She looked at him carefully, not just at his features, but at his presence, the steady way he listened, the warmth in his eyes that didn't demand anything, the humor he carried like a blanket instead of a weapon. He wasn't a distraction from her problems. He wasn't a replacement for anything she'd lost. He was simply a gentle moment in a life that had been too heavy for too long. He leaned forward slightly. "Can I ask something not too intrusive?" Eva raised a brow. "That depends on the intrusion level." He chuckled. "Level 1, barely noticeable." "Ask. You seem like someone who carries a lot quietly. But today, the quiet looks peaceful. Not heavy." He paused. "Did you find some clarity?" Eva felt a warmth spread through her. "Yes," she said softly, "I did. And it's been a long time coming." His eyes softened with understanding. I'm happy for you, he said. Clarity is a rare gift. Eva looked down at her cup, a small smile tugging at her lips. Thank you. He lifted his drink in a small toast. To new clarity. She lifted her own cup. To lighter days. Their cups touched softly. He didn't ask for details, names, or explanations. He didn't push for information she wasn't ready to give. He simply offered space, quiet, warm, respectful space, and Eva realized something. She wasn't used to people giving her space without disappearing. But here he was, offering room for her to breathe, while staying close enough to matter. She caught herself studying the shape of his smile when he spoke, the way he tilted his head slightly when listening. Her chest fluttered, a gentle, cautious flutter she hadn't felt since before her marriage unraveled. It wasn't infatuation. It wasn't longing. It was recognition. Recognition of kindness. Recognition of calm. Recognition of someone whose presence didn't ask her to shrink or perform. It was the beginning of something. Not a loud beginning. Not a sweeping, cinematic beginning. A soft one, a respectful one. A beginning she didn't want to run from. That afternoon, when Eva picked Brooklyn up from school, her daughter immediately leaned forward from the back seat. "Mom?" she said curiously. "You're smiling again." Eva laughed softly. "Am I?" Brooklyn nodded, swinging her legs. "Yeah, it's like your face isn't tired anymore." Eva felt her heart swell. Children always see the truth before adults speak it. "Well," she said gently, "I think things are getting better. For all of us." Brooklyn grinned. "I like when you're happy. I like when you're happy," Eva replied, reaching back to squeeze her hand. As they drove home, Brooklyn hummed softly. A content, peaceful sound. The kind she only made when her world felt safe. And for the first time in a long while, their worlds were healing together. That evening, after Brooklyn fell asleep, Eva placed a small glass vase on the dining table and filled it with simple white daisies. Not roses, not anything dramatic, just quiet flowers for a quiet new chapter, a symbol of softness, a symbol of growth, a symbol of a heart blooming again. Not fast, not recklessly, but gently. Eva traced a fingertip along one petal and whispered to herself, "I am allowed to feel light again." And with that truth, her healing moved one step forward. Brooklyn spent most of the morning humming softly to herself, sprawled across the living room rug with colored pencils scattered around her. Eva watched from the kitchen doorway, hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea. Today felt different, not just peaceful, but whole. The tension that once hid in Brooklyn's shoulders was gone. Her small body moved freely, her humming light and joyful as she drew sweeping shapes across the paper. Eva smiled quietly. Present. This was what healing looked like. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. "Honest, Mom?" Brooklyn said suddenly, lifting her head. "Yes, baby. Don't come over yet. I'm working on something." Eva laughed softly. Okay, I'll stay right here." Brooklyn bent over her drawing again, curls falling around her face as she colored with intense concentration. Eva walked toward the window, letting the light warm her cheeks. The past few months had been a test of heart, a test she thought she was failing. But now, standing in her cozy Juneau apartment with sunlight spilling across the floor and her daughter humming on the rug, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Certainty. She and Brooklyn were going to be okay. More than okay. They were stronger now. A few minutes later, small footsteps padded across the floor. "Okay, Mom. Close your eyes." Eva turned, smiling as she obeyed. "Closed. Promise you're not peeking?" "Promise." Brooklyn giggled, soft, excited, hopeful. "Okay. Open them." Eva opened her eyes, and her heart clenched with love, relief, gratitude. Brooklyn held out a drawing, bright, colorful, earnest in the way only children can capture emotion. Brooklyn, Eva, Marcus, Nova, they weren't separated, they weren't divided by lines or distance. They weren't grouped into households, they stood together, but that wasn't the part that stole Eva's breath. Above her figure, in bright purple crayon, Brooklyn had written, "My number one." Eva pressed a hand to her chest. "Oh, baby," she whispered. "Come here." Brooklyn stepped forward shyly, her eyes bright. Do you like it? Like it? Eva knelt down and pulled her daughter into her arms. Sweetheart, I love it. I wanted to show that everybody helps me, she said softly. Dad helps me feel brave. Nova helps me learn stuff. But... She paused, looking shyly down at her shoes. You're where I feel safe. Brooklyn beamed. I wanted you to know you didn't lose me. Eva inhaled sharply, not from pain, but from relief so powerful it almost made her knees weak. Safe. The same word that once shattered her on the doorstep. But today, it healed her. I love you more than anything, Eva whispered, pressing a kiss to Brooklyn's forehead. You never have to doubt that. Brooklyn's smile stretched wide. I know, Mom. Thank you for drawing this, Eva said, brushing a curl from her daughter's cheek. It means everything. Eva's eyes softened. I never did. I just didn't understand what you were carrying. Brooklyn leaned into her. But we're okay now, right? Eva hugged her tighter. We're perfect. Brooklyn nestled into her, small arms wrapping around Eva's neck. Later that afternoon, Eva placed the drawing in a frame, carefully smoothing the paper, adjusting it until it sat perfectly. Brooklyn stood beside her, watching proudly. Does it look good there? She asked. Eva nodded. It looks perfect. They stood together, admiring the framed picture glowing softly in the afternoon light. The drawing wasn't just art. It was a promise, a symbol, a quiet declaration that their bond wasn't broken. It had simply been misunderstood, and now it was stronger than ever. Brooklyn slipped her hand into her mother's. Mom? Yes, baby. Are we going to be okay with Nova now? Eva smiled gently. Yes, we will. We talked, and we understand each other now. Brooklyn nodded, relieved. Good. I didn't want anyone to be sad. Eva knelt again, cupping her daughter's cheeks tenderly. You don't have to carry grown-up feelings anymore. That part is our job now. You just get to be a child. Brooklyn's shoulders relaxed. Okay. They hugged again, warm, soft, with the ease of a bond restored. That evening, they settled onto the couch together with blankets wrapped around them, a bowl of popcorn between them, and a movie playing quietly in the background. Brooklyn rested her head on Eva's shoulder. Eva rested her cheek on her daughter's hair. Nothing dramatic happened. No conflict, no tension, no fear, just peace. The kind of peace that comes after truth finds its way out. Brooklyn looked up at her mother one last time before closing her eyes. Mom? Yes, baby. I'm really happy we talked. Eva brushed her lips against her daughter's forehead. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. Sometimes healing doesn't come from winning someone back, but from realizing you never lost them in the first place. Darling, if this story touched your heart the way it touched Eva's, please like this video and comment your thoughts below. Your engagement helps these meaningful stories reach more people who need them. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to Mr. John Stories for more emotional, powerful, life-changing narratives. Thank you for watching, and thank you for feeling this story with us.